Good evening, everyone, and thanks for participating in this webinar. If it's okay, we are hoping to record it, and this is simply to capture some of the discussion for our own reference and note-taking purposes. And so we sort of capture what happens this evening. That can help us with our plans for moving forward with the community energy work. So if this is okay with anyone, I'll continue. If anyone doesn't want that to happen, can you let us know now or send a message through in the chat? Okay. Yeah, we'll see if we can share it. That is a good point. Yeah, we can probably do that as well. Okay.
Nicola, it looks like everybody's muted and their cameras are off. Is that something? Is that bit they can change that, or is that bit something in the meeting settings? I wonder.
I think individually you can change it if you want to do that.
Because I'm very happy for people not to be muted, and I like to see the faces of my victims.
I think it was showing when it popped up, it first kind of said like camera, it said something like you can't unmute yourself, or you can't
oh right,
you can't put your video has been disabled, but mine seemed to be kept on. So maybe it's if you're not a presenter, it has automatically set as turning your video and your camera off, or your video and your sound off.
Okay, I'm going to get started and then I'll see if I can do something about that once we've got through the introduction. Okay, so we have two great speakers today. We have Kirsty Shanahan, who is a Community Energy Pathways Project Manager, and she has significant experience herself at setting up a community energy organisation. And we also have Sarah Burgess, who is the director of the community energy organisation called Grand Union Community Energy, which works across southwest Hertfordshire. So we're going to hear the two presentations and then take questions at the end. And if you want, you can also put questions in the chat or in the question and answer chat, and we can always read them out. So as a council, we have had this opportunity to carry out the scoping work for community energy through the funding we received from Innovate UK for the St Albans Greener Together network. It's really exciting, and the council are keen to see the results of this piece of work and the level of engagement for a community energy organisation to start up in the district. We may not be able to provide funding for lots of community energy projects, but the council are supportive of investigating what's possible and helping to identify funding opportunities that a community energy organisation could apply for. So I'd like to hand over to Kirsty to get us started.
Lovely. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully you can all see that. Just move you over and go into present mode. Is that showing up in present mode? Yep.
I can still just see your main screen.
If you press present in Teams on your at the top right, present in Teams.
Okay. Present in Teams. I have not got that, so I'm just going to share.
If you go back to share, and then it should be you should be able to put it in slideshow, and then it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So can you see it now?
No, it's gone.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
perfect.
there you go.
So odd, isn't it? Odd. Anyway, thank you everybody for your patience, and hopefully we'll be able to reveal your faces and you'll be able to interact a bit, because I'm very happy to sort of stop and answer questions in between, and I do have some questions for you in it. And I don't know what everybody's level of knowledge of community energy is. So I'm going to talk broadly speaking about it. So if I skim over anything and you want to ask a question in more detail, please do feel free. And if you know, I'm going to try not to bore everybody with too much detail. So it's always a fine balance, isn't it? So what is community energy? And let's see if the slides will work. Come on. There we go. So that's what we're going to do today. And Sarah's here, for the kind of on the ground view from Hertfordshire, actually, and has had lots of exciting projects. Community Energy Pathways is basically an umbrella organisation that helps a lot of local groups get started and helps local authorities to support the local groups to get started. But community energy is, as it says, it's all about the community. It completely depends on having excited, enthusiastic people coming together to reduce energy use. So that's in buildings, whether that's domestic or industrial or at the council. They work together to reduce the energy that's used and also to generate decarbonised heat and power. So the original start of community energy was solar panels on community rooftops during the feed-in tariff. And the way that's funded is by local people investing in those projects. And it helps to reduce the costs for the tenant of the building, whether that's a parish council or a school, and the local people get a return on their investment. So it really is a win-win, because essentially a local organisation is buying energy from their local community rather than from a kind of a big energy supplier and all that money just disappearing out of the community. Part of the powering down, as we call it, so reducing energy use, it is also about understanding local energy needs. And a lot of community energy groups, after the feed-in tariff ended, it became harder to get the rooftop projects off the ground. And a lot of people turned to energy advice. So we have energy champions, energy advisors, and it's become quite professionalised. There are quite a lot of groups that have funding and actually pay people part-time to be energy champions. And that's actually crucial because it helps you understand your local energy needs. So it helps you understand what your local population is doing, because when you meet people out and about, you find out what they've already got at home, how they're already saving energy, or whether they're not, whether they're in fuel poverty or not, whether they're not bothered about their energy. And actually, this is the kind of grassroots information that local authorities and the grid and the government really need, so that they can design grant programs, so that they can upgrade the infrastructure, and also for local authorities, so that the local planning authority can understand what the impact of a new housing estate might be on the local community in terms of the grid capacity. So it can be really complicated and it can be really simple. It can be very community, I just want to help people, or it can be quite, technical, project managery, and really exciting. It can literally be as well whatever you want it to be. It's very entrepreneurial. So if you've got an idea that's related to energy, you can probably make it happen with the right people in your group, and we'll come on to that later. And what it basically does as well, it offers the opportunity for people to professionalise in something that's close to their heart. So a planet-friendly career in solar or energy decarbonisation or retrofit. And it offers job opportunities. A lot of that is grant funded. But if you can combine generation with the powering down stuff, you can actually fund your energy advice, which nobody really wants to pay for. And then you can create a team that's actually paid, and that's really exciting, because everybody wants everybody to be bringing skills and job opportunities into the community as well. And I think the other thing is that when you see the solar go up and you see a group of people and you've invested and you've been part of that journey, it really raises awareness of your agency in the climate action space, in climate change. A lot of us feel very powerless. And you probably often hear people say things like, well, other countries should be doing more, or the government should be doing more. What can I do? It's too big a problem. And community energy really gives you the opportunity to take practical, pragmatic, really impactful steps on climate change. And so that's really powerful for people's mental health as well. So this is a very corporate kind of slide. Beautifully branded and slightly on the wonk. That's not you, that's the slide. So Community Energy Pathways basically grew out of a community energy group called Avesco, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. And it was basically because a lot of groups kind of start, and they start by reinventing the wheel. And certainly when Sarah and I set up our community energy groups, there was not a lot of the basic templates for doing stuff. We had to make it up as we went along, or we would ask around, and everybody was doing it differently, and there was no kind of best practice. It's definitely evolved a lot in the last 5 years, and Community Energy Pathways and Community Energy England to an extent, and some of the older, more resourced community energy groups as well have done a lot of supporting newer groups. And we basically enable local authorities and the existing community groups to understand what there is in community energy, what is needed, what documents are needed, what are the incorporation methods, how you raise funding, what are the challenges and how to overcome them, and help the local authorities to help their existing community groups to actually develop a community energy project. We've got this capacity building program, which we're doing the step 1 at the moment with St Albans, which is just really, it's kind of a scoping exercise. It's to find out who's done what before, what the appetite is in the local community, what the opportunities are in terms of rooftops, and basically find out also what funding might be available to help that community energy be turbocharged and get things done quicker. The next stage of that then is, if we've got interest, we might be paid to help and support and mentor. But you might find that you've got a community energy group that comes together, coalesces, you've got the leadership, and they know where to find help, and off they go, which would be amazing as well. We also do energy planning, so we're trying more and more to talk to local authorities about their local area energy plans, and that's about bringing spatial planning, so planning as in building consents, housing developments, all of that stuff together with understanding what's happening at the grid edge. And then we do powering down, which is we train and bring up and advise groups on how to build up groups of energy champions, teams of energy champions with, it used to be, if you had somebody who had an air source heat pump and solar panels, and they would go out into the community and give advice because they were simply the person that knew the most about the new technology. We do actually now do a lot more of trying to make the advice more consistent, and make sure that it's based on the facts and impartial advice rather than on personal opinion. And so we've professionalized energy champions. It's absolutely amazing. We still wear silly t-shirts and turn up with silly games to try and get people to talk about energy advice, but we actually, more and more, we really know our stuff and have a broad breadth of knowledge as well, across heat, decarbonisation, retrofit, as well as your basic energy tips. So that's really exciting too, because however involved you want to be in that, you might manage a team, you might come from a recruitment background or a project management background or a customer service background, and this could be something where you could follow your climate change heart and do a job in that. So that's really exciting too. So Community Energy Pathways, very briefly, we support about 50 community energy groups. There are about 450 across the nation in varying states of energised or moribundity. Is that a word? Moribundation. Well, some of them have lost their mojo after the feed-in tariff. Some of them only existed to put solar on one village hall, and others have grown into, huge groups with lots of projects and, 20 paid staff, as well as lots of volunteers, and hugely exciting breadth of projects. And actually, I think Juice is well on the way to being that. So I'm really happy that Sarah's here to come and talk about what they've done. On average, we provide about 30 days of intensive consultancy, which, we measure it according to the people we've got in the room. So we don't kind of just barge in and go, right, this is what you've got to do. We're very much nurturing, providing help where it's needed, but not patronising people. So because we're all from a community energy background, we kind of understand what's needed, and it totally depends who you've got in the room. So we've done projects for about 15 local authorities. Most of those are county, but we're doing St Albans district. And we're trying to work more and more with parishes on their parish energy plans. And that's something that most like, what? To be honest, a lot of local authorities are still not getting up to speed with that. So a lot of what Community Energy Pathways does is about educating at the strategic and the policy level, whether it's DESNZ or Ofgem or the DNOs or NESO, we actually provide a lot of information about how communities should be informing this energy transition. So most of the experience of Community Energy Pathways was developed in Sussex, and as you can see from these numbers, they've had a considerable economic and social value impact. So Ovesco is the original kind of birthplace of Community Energy Pathways. As with so much community energy, we're very much see a need, fill a need kind of people. So when you find yourself getting asked for advice more than twice a month, you think, do you know what, I'm going to set up an umbrella organisation so that we can kind of provide this advice in a more formal way. So Ovesco started out with Harvey's Brewery. Most community energy groups would love it if they could start with a project like this, with a great off-taker underneath, really willing, obviously they had their ups and downs and their challenges, but to have a commercial partner right from the get-go was really amazing. And they've expanded out into some solar farms. Some of these are feed-in tariff, some not so much. So the latest one, the Ouse Valley Solar Farm, had no feed-in tariff. And they've done schools, and they've also done random stuff like Get Bikery, like an electric cargo bike. It's literally, well, it's electric, so let's put it under community energy. But if you've got funding from your other assets, you can literally do whatever the community wants to do. And they do a lot of energy advice. So they've been funded most recently by the UKPN and the LEAD funding that we also had on my project in Essex. So you can see there's a wide variety, but that's not even, scraping the surface. There are people that have EV car clubs. Some of them have wind turbines, so there's a lot of variety in community energy. So I'm just going to talk very briefly about how that works, how community energy works in practice. It's actually, broadly speaking, these are the kind of stages, but you can imagine there's some complexity within it. So the first thing really is to do the site identification and work out what might be a good site for your community energy group to start working on. And you also need to kind of work out who owns that building, who has got an interest in it. Is it the council or is it a commercial landlord? And try and get those people engaged enough to do an informal expression of interest, so that you can commit the time and everything. Generally, I advise to, at the same time, do your community benefit society incorporation, or whatever your official, if you're going to be a CIC or whatever your model is going to be. Generally, we go for community benefit societies because it's just easier for the fundraising. But because everything takes quite a long time, if you do them all at the same time, you can get your people together, get incorporated, get all the admin done, understand what you're about, and also be talking to these sometimes unresponsive rooftop owners. So, but everybody does it differently, and in the group will be people with different approaches and different personalities, who have different levels of risk aversion, different levels of of wanting, what order they want to do things in. Then generally you take your rooftop, you're pretty sure that your off-taker inside and the building owner, whether they're one and the same or not, are going to be up for things, and you might invest in a technical survey. So you might get the installer to actually do the technical survey as if they were going to build it tomorrow. And that also kind of rolls into the feasibility study if you're talking about solar PV. If it's heating, it's generally a little bit more complicated, and also the financial modelling for heat as a service is not always easy to do. But again, nothing is off the table because you can generally find ways to make things work. If it's too complex and too expensive, sometimes some things you just have to give up. But at the beginning of it, let's have the open mind. And then at that point, because you're investing some money, you might have actually the memorandum of understanding with the people that you're going to have the roof lease and the power purchase agreement with. And then the formalities are the invitation to tender process. And a community energy group would generally do it the way like a parish council or a council would do, except not using Contracts Finder, but they would invite at least 3 people, maybe more, to tender and have a specification based on the technical survey. And that just saves time, because in the past we used to do the desktop assessment and then think, well, it's going to cost roughly this. And then we'd go out and get quotes and they would be guesswork. And then you get to the bit where you've got to do your financial modelling and you need to be a bit more precise. And then you'd find that actually the installers go, yeah, I know we quoted that, but actually that roof is a bit trickier than I thought it was, and the cable run and the distribution board, I'm not really sure. And all of a sudden you're into a world of pain. So it's better to get all the pain out and really know what you're dealing with early on. Then you do financial modelling, and we have templates for this. So they're the established community energy groups. It's amazing how complicated you can make something over time. But actually, there are quite a few variables that go into the financial modelling, and some community energy groups have learned quite painfully about why those things need to be in that spreadsheet. But you'll definitely have people on your team who look at the spreadsheet and go, yeah, I'm going to go off and do something else. But hopefully you've got some people in there who like the numbers, and that's really important to have that mix of skills. Then the exciting part is you go out for your community share offer. This is absolutely nerve-wracking because you're thinking, I've got to raise £500,000 and nobody's going to invest. But miraculously, they do. And there are community energy groups that have raised millions of pounds and portfolioed up lots of sites, and and so it can happen, and it does happen. It's usually a good idea to have a kind of target and then a stretch target, and you might need a bridging loan or a bond as well. You might need to go out bigger than your district. If you're doing it just within a district, you might need to go county or national. But actually, it's amazing how many people are keen to make this kind of ethical investment. At the same time as your community share offer and your financial modelling, you've got your power purchase agreement all set up with your off-taker. That's the building owner that uses the energy. And you will have all of those kind of contractual formalities like the Form E, which you need for schools. That's where the Department for Education has to approve it. So all of that kind of stuff has to be done. But all of that is not rocket science. It has all been done before. And even leases where there's multiple, there's a tenant and there's a freeholder, which often happens with council buildings. None of this is new. People have been using leases and have had successful relationships. So that bit really shouldn't be scary. And then you get to the installation bit, and then you get to the favourite part for me, which I've never managed with Bucks Community Energy, which is the picture of everybody in front of the solar panels going, yay, we did it! And I've never got there yet, but I really have dreams of that. Then you supply the electricity, you bill for what's taken off the solar panels, and that income, as well as the export income, pays back your investors, because the community share offer will have offered a 3% or 4% interest rate to your community investors. And that's what you've got to pay. That's part of your costs, and all of that goes in the financial modelling. So that's a whistle-stop tour. I fully expect you to have questions or concerns or, challenges. Do please raise them, because I don't know what might be intriguing you about all of that. And hopefully none of you are asleep. I can't tell. So just very briefly, one of the really great things about St Albans is you've got a council who are supportive. So they might not have the dollars to help, but they've certainly got the willingness. And, they declared a climate emergency back in, I think it was 2006. They've done a huge amount of decarbonising of council estate. They've done lots of energy audits and feasibility studies. Obviously, you've got the Greener Together network. You've got a whole kind of atmosphere in St Albans with Transition St Albans and then becoming sustainable, and then all of the other lovely projects that are going on in St Albans. So you've very much got a supportive council and a community that is really open to these things. And those are two of the key ingredients. And the fact that the council has already put a lot of solar PV on its roofs, in a way, it takes away some of the opportunities. But on the other hand, it provides that they are demonstrating leadership, and that kind of commitment to the technology will also inspire others. So that's a really positive thing as well. So you've got some of these have already got the solar on, and some of them, like the Drovers Road car park, would be really cool to have a solar carport thing going on there, or in any of the other sites, to be honest, as well. So there's still some work to be done on St Albans sites, but equally you've got other sites. This Harborough thing is just to show you, well, the people with the panels. Oh, happy moment. So the other things, you've got industrial estates, you've got schools. You'd have to work with Hertfordshire, but there's no reason why that shouldn't be a discussion that starts, and with the support of St Albans DC as well. And then there's the potential for shared ownership with commercial developers, which Community Energy Pathways is having that conversation, very much having that conversation with government at the moment about whether that should be mandatory and what form that takes. And there's actually a consultation out on that at the moment to find out, because it was left to the developers. So of course they did the minimum. But the idea of shared ownership is where the community gets to buy into the actual development. So if you've got a 50 megawatt project, that's a £50 million project, 10% of that could be community share ownership. And suddenly you're in really big bucks for the Community Energy Group, who can just take a little bit of surplus off that and do loads of other stuff with that. So lots of other not so viable projects financially could become viable if you can cover the costs of the legal fees and development fees through having some sort of shared ownership, or even a community benefit fund from a commercial developer. So there are options there. I was at this point. Can everybody speak? And if you would like to interject, if you've got any rooftop ideas, if there are any roofs in your area that you've thought, gosh, those should definitely have solar on. Does anybody have any suggestions or ideas or conversations you've had with local big rooftop owners? Silence. Okay, have a think and let's come back to that. Or bung it in the chat.
There is one. Iris.
Hi.
Iris.
Well, I'm a little bit of a misnomer. Sorry, hold on. Lost my hearing. Sorry, let's pulled it out. Yeah, hi. That's really, really interesting what you're saying, and I'm aware of most of what you're saying already. But what I was going to add is that we are now looking at domestic roofs as a cooperative ownership model to make that work, because solar panels and battery storage together can now serve as a roof as well, if you see what I mean. As opposed to a big roof, we're in the process of developing something we call the Solar Challenge to have a community-owned scheme that concentrates on people's domestic roofs, communally owned.
And how would that, would the people pay the community group for their energy that they use off it?
Yeah. So what will happen is that the roof. Oh well, the people who are paying the bills in the house, let's put it this way, will pay a reduced rate, and that reduced rate with a third-party billing provider partner, a bit like Energy Local, but which fits in really well with the Energy Local model, by the way, is to have a PPA agreement, and for the money to effectively be channeled back to the co-op that owns the array. So it's slightly more complicated because you're dealing with individual householders. Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. It's a lot more complicated because it's not a proven model yet, but we're working really hard to make it work. And we are hopefully within the next 6 months going to be able to put our first installations on the roofs. So
yeah.
And
have you got a group already? What's your co-op called?
Well, our co-op doesn't exist yet. We have a CIC currently. Called Resilience Network. It's resnet.org.uk if you want to have a look. We're sort of based in Bristol in the sense that that's where we are, but we are working with quite a few different places now across England to have England and Wales to see, because they're clusters of towns and cities that are sort of not really, they don't have those very engaged, and I'm afraid to say often very middle class led groups that can make the big roofs work and have the money to put in and the time and the energy. It's very difficult. So we are trying to bring something to communities that are able to embrace that on an individual household level and at a community level, and have a fund set up that will then do both. Will serve the community. It will also hopefully increase energy resilience and do lots of other things.
So are you yourself based in Bristol then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So were you part of the Lockleys Love Solar project?
Well, I wasn't, but my colleague was, whom I approached to work with because I wanted us to go back to that.
Well, if you want to talk to some of the people that worked on that, I can introduce you to Chris. Do you know Chris, who was the chair of Low Carbon Gordano?
Yeah.
Chris Stewart Bennett.
Loads of the people that were involved in that we're talking to. So
yeah.
And the the good, the bad, and the ugly, and why it needs to be done this way and not that way, and what's different and how it's changed, because that's now quite a few years ago, and the energy landscape is much more positive in a way.
Yeah, they would be so delighted if you could get that off the ground, and
that's
it would be
what we're doing, and we're working
with
Lockleys, so it's nice.
Yeah,
so,
lovely.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to invade this space. I was just trying to say we are trying to pull together, because we've also realized that the excess that it currently just sort of goes into the system of many of the roofs that already have either existing feed-in towers or are currently coming online, with those that we're working with the Energy Local Club model to bring those existing arrays possibly online in inner city areas, and the solar challenge model that we're developing will also be one of the generators within that scheme. So we're trying to bring lots of different strands together to really be able to, how shall I put this most politely, to be less independent, less dependent on the government for both funding, for support, and being able to do many more things by ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. All right, let us know when you've nailed that.
Well, we're nearly there. Have a look on the website. It's resnet.org.uk, as in Resilience Network, ResNet.
That's great.
And have a look. I put it in the chat. All right, but I won't hijack any more of your meeting now.
Martin, did you?
Martin, did you want to raise your question?
He's trying to unmute. That's the classic unmute. Hi.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. So I was listening to what you were saying about the school rooftops and the Form E that you fill in, and I was just wondering if there was something similar with buildings that belong to the NHS, like hospitals, doctors' surgeries, that kind of thing.
Not as far as I know. Not.
Is that something that could be looked into as a sort of an obvious similar sort of availability of roof space?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the NHS is quite hard to get through to because it's so big and unwieldy, and sometimes its roofs can be quite complex. There's a lot of roof furniture. But GP surgeries often have lovely flat roofs and are relatively easy to put on. So it really depends on the building. And there's definitely, I think it's Sheffield has got a massive hospital community-owned solar project. So they've proven it can be done. And I don't think any of the directors are still suicidal. I think they've recovered. So, hopefully, if you can connect the group with the right people, magic can happen, as well as a lot of hard work.
Well, that's good to hear. There's one other thing I was just going to quickly point out, is that there are a couple of roads in St Albans and St Albans district, say in Harpenden, where you've got a road that has a large proportion of blocks of flats as opposed to houses, and those blocks of flats have a big flat roof area that would be a really nice thing to explore the availability of those as generating potential.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, you're not alone in thinking that, because I had a lovely chat with a chap who may or may not be on the call, but about having an EV car club and solar owned and supplying the flats. It has its own challenges, but actually the beauty of that is often you've got a residents association who can pull together right from the get-go. And it's also something that you're quite likely to get funding for, because nobody's nailed it yet. And so if you can come up with innovative ways of addressing the challenges that other people have come up with, then yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if anybody can make it happen, it's a community energy group. So.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Yeah, brilliant. That's all right. Kevin?
Yeah, I won't come off video if you don't mind, but are there any particular challenges in the rural space? Particularly, I'm looking, that's where our charity is focused, with Hertfordshire Community Energy. Sort of rural spaces, farms, etc. As I sort of pick this back up for our charity, just what should I be looking out for?
What, in terms of sites?
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing about agricultural, the thing about farm solar is that the commercial developers are really all over this like a rash. So it's quite hard to find decent sites and get connections. And actually, you know, the real need is for rooftop solar, because we've got buildings that need to save on their energy, particularly schools whose budgets have been absolutely busted by the energy price rises. So I think community energy really exists not necessarily to look at what they can make a buck on. It needs to make a little bit of money, so it's got a little bit of surplus and, you know, is a safe vehicle, and also so that maybe its existing generation can support the development costs for the next one. But really, I feel that the kind of moral space that community energy should be working in is that rooftop that no commercial developer really wants to look at. But the competition with commercial, and they have really deep pockets for to do that whole farm solar thing. I mean, your options, if you wanted to just go for like 3 or 4 megawatts, a little site, you've got a good chance with that, because the commercial developers are looking really at the 49, 50 kilowatts, megawatts sites. So you might, if there's a little patch of land that you know is rubbish agricultural land, or it's brownfield, it's not going to be built on for housing, you know, and you think the community would get behind that, you could do that, and maybe some battery storage as well for the innovation of it. But I think really the need for the community is the rooftop stuff, but it's entirely up to you.
So we've got the village hall network, so probably that's better off for my efforts to start off with.
Definitely. Yeah, they really need the support. A lot of village halls as well, they've got the money. If they're a relatively wealthy parish council, they'll probably have the money themselves, but they just don't know where to start. So actually, sometimes just giving them a feasibility study, offering a helping hand. I've done a lot of that as a community energy group. It's not a money earner, but you feel good afterwards. And sometimes actually I have stood in front of the solar panels and gone, yay, even though we don't own them, just for the hell of it.
Thank you.
Okay, so you've probably heard more than enough from me. So I'm just going to go to my final slide, which is really what kind of talents, skills, people do you need in your group? It really helps if you've got some leadership. So not somebody that takes control, but somebody that can bring everyone with them and get everybody excited about it. Only just because people just work better in a kind of where somebody is driving things forward. Now, that person might not be the leader, they might be the project manager. But it needs somebody who's going to say, we've discussed this at length in the pub over a pint, and now that we've heard about everybody's air source heat pumps, can we please work on a project? You need somebody who's going to drive it forward, because otherwise you're just going to end up talking around things. You need people who can communicate. That's with the wider community, with district councillors, with parish councillors, and, you know, with local organisations, whoever they may be. And you need people that can communicate within the team as well. You need some technical knowledge, or you need a friendly installer that can help you navigate the technical challenges, because it is a technical thing that you're trying to do, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. It doesn't have to be scary, but you do need to respect what you're trying to do. ideally you have somebody who loves filling in application forms for grant funding, or at least has the time to do it. You need somebody who's quite good at admin, not so much at the beginning, but when you get to the stage where you're running a community share offer and you've got members and you've got to manage the share registry and administer the interest payments and things like that. Most community energy groups build that into their costs, and they get a professional organisation like Neville's or somebody to run that. But it really helps if you've got somebody just to keep you straight and to be the society secretary and to make sure you've done all your governance stuff. But most of all, you need enthusiasm, you need dedication, and you need passion. Most of us are idealists and realists. You need a balance of both, because you can't just be pursuing the impossible dream all the time. But a lot of us gives a huge amount of time because it's a passion project as well. But the great thing about it is that I love about it is that you feel like you're really doing something worthwhile with your voluntary time. And for me as well, it has turned into a career move. So, you know, that's been pretty amazing. And I know lots and lots of people who've ended up making a living from it because it's really valuable and it's becoming more valued. And on that, I'm going to hand over to Sarah so that you can have some relief from me, but because she is exactly the kind of person that has demonstrated how this can all work. So I'm going to stop sharing and hand over to Sarah.
Thank you very much. So while you stop, I will see if I can do this in one smooth action. Let's see if this works. Hang on. No, it's on the wrong slide. I knew that wouldn't work. Does that? Hopefully, can you see my slide? Is it showing the slide with Grand Union Community Energy on it? I'm looking. Kirsty, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it?
I can see it, but I can see it in your notes form.
Yeah,
like
that's
with
fine. So if I now do slideshow, that all working?
Yeah, that's great.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. So yeah, I mean, I felt myself nodding along and kind of going, yes, that's basically sums up community energy. What do you need from me? Hopefully this won't duplicate too much. But yeah, I'm Sarah Burgess, and I both sit as a volunteer board director for Grand Union Community Energy, but like Kirsty, have been very fortunate to also been able to make this a bit of my job. So I now freelance and support organisations like Grand Union Community Energy and a couple of other community energy groups across the country. Let's make sure I've got the right laptop I'm using. So what they've asked me to cover today is essentially a bit about Juice, because it's an awful lot easier to say the Grand Union Community Energy. We are Juice. We're not Gucci. We are not that posh. So it's like orange juice. Everyone says soft G and soft C. Talk a little bit about who we are and what we've done, and what we do today and how we've evolved, a bit about our journey, and then why we do it. Again, Kirsty's kind of talked a little bit about what she's got out of it and what other people get out of it, but kind of talk about what I've got out of it and what our other board directors. And then, yeah, feel free to chuck any questions at me at any point in time. So who are we? I mean, essentially, we are a community benefit society, which is one of the ways you can incorporate, which Kirsty mentioned. So we are registered, I think, with the Financial Services Authority, and we can raise funds through share issues. We have a volunteer board of directors of 6 board directors, and we cover from Tring down to Watford. So we are, which is hence the Grand Union name. We don't go all the way to Birmingham, all the way down to London, but we've picked that little bit in southwest hearts of Dacorum, Three Rivers and Watford councils. Essentially, it all started, and this was pre my time, with a very excited group of individuals, very passionate and knowledgeable, who were connected to the Rudolf Steiner School, the independent school in Kings Langley, which some of you may know. And back in 2012, 2013, they were like, oh, this community energy is building momentum, and we'd really love to do a share offer and put solar panels on the Rudolf Steiner School. And so that was our first project. They raised just shy of they raised about £70,000, put a 40 kilowatt system on the Rudolf Steiner School, and also raised an extra £10,000, I think, to buy out the 10 kilowatt system that was already there. So therefore owned a 50 kilowatt system that was on top of the Rudolf Steiner School, and did that power up project as Kirsty referenced it as. And it's been ticking along really nicely. And the Steiner School has been paying 8p a kilowatt hour, certainly for the first 10 years of that project, which I think 2 years ago, if anybody had said you could get 8p a kilowatt hour, a school would have bitten your hand off after all the prices went up in 2021. So yeah, so that's been doing very well. But the power down side of things, Juice hadn't really looked at. And I had spent 4 years in the States, developed some sustainable projects and nonprofits out there, and came back to living in Kings Langley, having been away, and was looking for something to do with my time and to keep me out of trouble. And I ended up getting connected with Juice and the board. And I thought, well, this seems to tick quite a few boxes for me. And they had a bit of money from some COVID grants to develop and build and grow community energy in this area. So we kind of connected, and then we've done a whole load of other power down projects as well since then. So our strategy that we've just redone is very much focusing on both sides, power up and power down. And again, I think Kirsty referenced this earlier. Oh,
She's gone. She's gone. I was thinking that it would be me that had technical problems, but she might hop back in.
Sounded like a battery having gone, or something not having been switched on.
Yeah. She was talking about powering down. Very good. Yeah, that's very good. Shall we talk amongst ourselves for a minute until she comes back in? Yes. So, does anybody have any questions about the parts of my presentation? If I went too fast over something, or you're not quite clear on how the investment model works, or what the risk would be, for example, for a building partnering. Anybody got any questions about that sort of thing? Wow, so I was so clear that
Hi Kirsty, Steve Pester here.
hello.
Sorry, I'm up as SM or SMP on the symbol. I don't know why. Quick one. A few years ago, I know there was an issue, and I don't know if it still is. Some commercial property owners, when they put PV on the roof, found their business rates went up quite a lot. And I know there was some pushback from the trade associations with the government on that, and I don't remember whether they had any success or not. Is it still the case that you have to factor in higher business rates if you put PV on the roof of a commercial building?
Do you know, I haven't looked into that for a while. Oh, here's Sarah, that's good.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. That's
My
all right.
laptop just suddenly decided to shut down, as they do. I hugely apologise.
Oh, Steve was just asking a question. You might know the answer to this, Sarah, but Steve was just asking whether business rates on solar installations on commercial buildings, whether the business rates are still high. Because I remember this was being looked at, but I have a feeling you do still have to factor it in, because they count it as an income, don't they, or something, or an asset, and they bill you.
I wouldn't know I wouldn't want to give an answer on that one, because it wouldn't be accurate at all, but it's something that's definitely kind of worth looking into. Someone at Community Energy Pathways must know the answer to that one, I would have thought, or Community Energy England.
I will take that. Yeah, I'll take that away, Steve, and look that one up for you and see what the latest is. But it's a really good point.
Yeah,
Sarah, sorry, do you?
Yeah,
I was just keeping everyone interested.
Thank you. I'm sorry. You should have heard the language that I was using as my laptop decided to do that. And I was totally mid-flow too. I was mid-waving of my hands and everything. So sorry about that. Right, let's pop this back into slideshow mode and keep going. Okay, so where was I? Talking about power up and power down, I think. So yeah, Juice and our board, our business strategy and our kind of plan for the next 5 years has been very much to focus on both the power up and power down. And I think Kirsty mentioned this before, where essentially the power up projects, the solar panels, the big kind of creating more renewable energy in your area, that is what drives that community surplus pot, which enables you to be able to fund the power down stuff, which is hugely beneficial. I always like to put this little picture on the side, predominantly because when I do presentations like this, and I've done it quite a few over the Three Rivers and Watford districts in the last couple of years, people, if I'm honest, just look at me and kind of go, yeah, but you're just some kind of crazy Tigger-like woman that's standing in front of us, jumping up and down, saying how amazing community energy is. I don't believe that this is bigger than just you or kind of this area. And actually, the reason I put this in there, and again, Kirsty's kind of referenced this, is it's so much bigger that in fact Hertfordshire is one of the kind of vacuums of community energy in the country. We have Green Heat Co-op in the north, in the northeast of Hertfordshire, Juice down in the southwest, and Hertford Energy now put solar panels on 3 school buildings in Hertford back in 2016. And that's kind of it for Hertfordshire. But there is this huge amount of loads of community groups. Sustainable St Albans I am constantly in awe of, and just kind of what they've been able to do with the sustainable markets and the Eco Expo last year and everything that's kind of being driven. There is a sustainable community within Hertfordshire as a whole, yet community energy seems to kind of not be here. But there is a lot in the rest of the country, and communities are already benefiting from this up and down the country. So so yes, it's not just a few of us who get the microphone. So I've touched on some of these, but to go in, kind of Kirsty mentioned literally you could cover anything, and if it could be done, a community energy group would do it. And I think to that point, we are truly testing that with Juice, because we've had on the Power Up side of things, we've had quite a few kind of rural community energy fund or community energy fund grants. And you might have seen in the press recently with the GB Energy and the what they're doing and the funding they've got. I think they've got 5 million for what will be an extension of the Community Energy Fund grant, which will now be the Great British Community Energy Fund, just to make it a longer title. Back in 2022, we received £40,000 from the Rural Community Energy Fund. We managed to make them think Kings Langley was rural, which is awesome, to essentially answer that question of, we've got a canal, we've got a river that flows through the canal. Can you use that heat and the water from the canal to heat a few homes? And literally the question in the beginning was, you know what, if we could do 2V's Mill, which is about 20, 30 homes, maybe we can stretch it out to kind of a bit of waterside. We might get to 50 or 100 homes that we could heat and decarbonise. That would be pretty cool. Would that be possible? Long and short of it was like, it'll be really, really expensive and like not viable. So we kind of pivoted partway through that stage 1, because they discovered that under the old Ovaltine factory, which if any of you know Kings Langley, you kind of might know the Ovaltine factory used to be there decades ago. There were boreholes which only went 15 metres down, and they used to use the aquifer, which is a prolific chalk aquifer that has an amazing flow, which if used could decarbonise the whole of the village. So we took that at stage 1 and we went to a stage 2 where we got Community Energy Fund money and £100,000 to look at this in more detail and actually kind of say, well, do we want to do a high temperature loop like Swaffham Prior has done to get that village off oil? Do we want to go ambient loop? All the technical people got very, very excited. And essentially what we're looking at now is zones, which is the picture in the top right, where we can bit by bit create a district heat network. And the thing I find as a non-technical person that is most exciting about this is it is accessible for everybody. This isn't about the people that can afford air source heat pumps or have the space in their gardens for air source heat pumps. This is accessible for everybody, whether they're in a hard to reach Victorian terrace with a courtyard sized backyard or a flat that doesn't have any outside space at all. This makes renewable energy and energy bill security accessible for everybody. So that district heat network is a very exciting project, and not just because I live in Kings Langley and it goes right past my road, but it's really exciting as an example for all of the other places that are just like our village across the country. The Rudolf Steiner School project I've touched on, so I won't bore you with that one again. And then we also got CEF funding, the Community Energy Fund, to do a stage 1 looking at solar canopies. And we worked very, very closely with Three Rivers District Council on this one to look at 7 of their own car parks that they owned and said, well, can you put solar canopies on it if it's funded via community energy? And we created a really simple flow chart of how you can kind of map out and prioritise ground-mounted solar sites to save a ton of resource and a ton of money for councils and for community energy groups to go through. So there's a whole array of Power Up projects that community energy groups can get their teeth into, and those are just a few of the ones. We've also got potentially another heat network project coming up. We've got stage 1 funding for that, which is just over the motorway in Abbots Langley, that hopefully will head out later on this year. On the power down side of things, as I say, this was something we've only really got stuck into in the last 18 months. And I think this has been what surprised me most. I was kind of all up for the power up side of things. I was like, the power down, yeah, I get it, but does it really make a difference? And boy, does it make a difference. Like I trained as an energy champion, got my certification, my City and Guilds qualification 20 odd years after having last sat an exam. And the UK Power Network funding has been amazing to actually, we've now delivered close on 1,000 conversations with people, answering questions, helping people understand their energy bills. We've done 60 home visits with people, the vast majority of them in vulnerable circumstances or people on the priority services register, so people over the age of 65. And when you sit with somebody and they haven't seen an energy bill in a year because it's somehow ended up on paperless and they just have no idea and they have no control because they can't access it because they don't remember their email password or haven't ever been into it, and you help them and you talk them through and you get on the phone with their energy company while they're there on loudspeaker and really help them kind of understand and bring their energy bills down because they're on a better tariff, that difference that you can make, I can't really put it into words because it kind of hits you. You leave there and you think, you know what, I did a good thing today. Like, and they're more in control. They feel better and they've had some help. It is resource intensive. It is time intensive. It isn't something that everybody likes to fund because it's difficult to quantify, but it makes a massive, massive difference. The other funding we've had, similarly, we've been working with Three Rivers District Council, and it's had a bit of a ripple effect with Watford, where we were working with Three Rivers on their Innovate UK funding, the Fast Followers project that they had, and that was to promote transition streets to the whole of the district. So Transition Streets is a programme of 7 workshops where neighbours get together or friends and kind of community groups get together, and they work through different topics of how they can save money on their energy bills and reduce their waste. And the average household saves about £500 on their annual household bills and about a tonne of carbon. So we've seen some groups do bulk cavity wall insulation quotes as a result of it. Others are actually going out and talking to all the golf courses around them in Moore Park and saying, right, you guys need to stop spraying, or how much are you spraying because you're infecting kind of our waterways and our kind of land by spraying lots of pesticides. So those have been really lovely because they are literally, the personality of each group is driven by the individuals in it. And my job is really, really simple because I just sit there and help facilitate, and they do all the hard work and they come up with all the ideas and you see the connection that comes from it. We also got a thermal imaging camera as part of that, and you'll see lots of community energy groups. It could be one of the ways that they start. They apply for a very small pot of money and they get a thermal imaging camera and they train up volunteers to go out, and it's a real good visual for homeowners to be able to identify areas where they're losing heat. Everyone kind of knows they're losing heat, but until you see a bright white bit through your letterbox or round your window because it's open or the seal's gone, that's when people say, okay, yeah, I need to do something about this. And then most recently, we've actually applied and were successful in getting money from the Watford Mayor's Fund to put out. So we got £3,000 to create 200 energy saving kits. So we will go out and we will hand out to the most vulnerable or people on the priority services register, working with the community partnerships groups within Watford, the food banks, to hand out LED light bulbs, radiator foils, draft proof tape, window film, and help people kind of understand how they can fit it and how it can then help them save their money on their energy bills. So yeah, that's kind of actually having tangible things that you can give people, as well as a ton of leaflets on damp and mold, and helping tenants understand their rights with damp and mold, and connecting and signposting them to Citizens Advice and other people that can support them as well. Again, just building people's confidence so they're not kind of putting their head in the sand. I don't mean that patronisingly, but actually help them realise that this is a manageable problem when it comes to energy bills, to energy debt, and to damp and mold in their home, so they can do something about it and take back control for themselves. And then why? Very conscious of time, so I'll speed through this one because I think a lot of this kind of touches on what Kirsty has already mentioned. But I think the main reason when I talk to people in community energy groups is for helping people. Some of these may sound really, really cheesy, but nobody does this because they're gonna retire in a year from doing it. This isn't about making money. This is about doing something that's going to benefit the community. And I always say that community, I mean, literally community benefits, it's in the name. Community benefit societies, community energy organizations, every single decision the group makes has to be for the benefit of the community. It has to be something that the community want, and it has to be something that they will benefit from. It's not about doing projects that will make energy companies billions. This is about how do we support our local communities that we live in, that our kids go to the schools in, that we walk down the high street of every day. So helping people is at the core of kind of why I think people do community energy. Supporting schools, again, this has already been mentioned, but when I spoke to a head teacher, I think in my first year, and he was like, our energy bill is going from £90,000 to £250 overnight when we switch from one tariff to the other. That is not where their money should be going. Their budgets aren't changing from the council, from the county council level. And we have to help protect our schools with energy bill security and making sure that they can hire teachers, do experiences, like go on school trips, whatever it might be. And community energy is a way that can kind of support that by giving them that energy bill security. I've talked about being part of the community, making a difference. I could say that till I'm blue in the face because I've probably written it about 5 times here. For those of you who do have a technical background, or who are kind of like who read all of the renewable energy magazines and kind of say, what can we do? I mean, I would never have been able to look at the canal and go, oh, I wonder if we could get heat out of that. But there are so many people who, we have Rick on our board, who is absolutely fascinated. His history is all, his whole career, he's now retired, has been about renewable energies and what is possible. Can sand batteries work? Can you combine a district heat network and make it ambient rather than high temperature? And what does the density of the houses have to be? So if that's the way your kind of mind works, if that's what you find fascinating, look around your village, look around where you are. When you drive down the high street of St Albans, you will see, I bet, tomorrow and this weekend, all of the buildings in different lights. You'll be like, oh, that's a good one for solar, or we could have a wind turbine there, or like, so use all, kind of harness that passion that you have and that knowledge you have, and kind of start asking those questions, because that's exactly what the Community Energy Fund is for helping work out whether those are feasible projects that could actually make a difference. And the last 3, I kind of just to kind of have a little bit of alliteration at the end, was confidence, continuous learning, and connection. Connection, I think we've touched on, being part of the community, connecting with people and feeling ownership and feeling engaged. I never thought I would sit an exam after I finished my university degree. So to sit my city in guilds at the grand old age of 44, I was like, oh my God, this is kind of crazy. But you're continually learning, be it in a professional way with a qualification, or actually just learning from other people, from learning how to widen the involvement, people with different needs and cultures, and how do you make sure that you service and you provide a service for everybody in your community, not just the people that look like you. And for me, that's a real kind of growth point this year, is making sure that we're reaching out to people, and I'm learning about how we can make things like this more accessible. I'm going from the bottom up just for a bit weird at the end, but confidence, I think, personally, when I had my kids and I stopped being Sarah, and this may be hard to believe now as I waffle on, but when you kind of lose that and you become so-and-so's mum, it's amazing, but you actually kind of like doing something, volunteering and having something where you know people and you connect with people, where you are not someone's husband, someone's partner, someone's parent. You become you again. And that builds your confidence back again. And whatever that is, be it community energy volunteering or volunteering in some other form, or like, it finds your passion again. And I think that's really, really, really important. So yes, confidence has been a huge thing that I have definitely developed over the last couple of years. And I think that might be me. I hope that was okay, Kirsty. Those are my contact details. Well, that's our website, it's my email address. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn as well if you'd like to. I'm on there. And yeah, feel free to ping away any questions or shout now, whichever you prefer. I'll stop sharing so I can see everybody again.
So there are some questions in the chat. Nicola, shall I go through those? Or does anybody, so
that's
does anybody have any questions they'd like to vocalize for Sarah straight off the back of her presentation? Should we go through the chat ones then? Let's go through the chat ones. It feels like there's already a collaborative spirit in the room.
Because I've seen a few things pop up and down, and Kevin, I think you might have been, Kevin, were you talking to Fiona Hughes of the Green Heat Co-op as well? I think I think CDA rang a bell from somebody she was talking to about village halls.
Yeah, very much so. And
Brilliant.
CDA Hearts has run the Hearts Community Energy Programme for about 3-4 years.
Fabulous.
It came off the boil and it's going back on it now. It's very much high on my agenda.
So I'm really glad to see you, Kevin, because I was trying to get in touch with, was it Tim that used to run it?
Unfortunately, Tim has just retired. His wife unfortunately had a stroke about 18 months ago, so he's been low level for 12 months. So been hard to get hold of. So yeah, we're now back on the agenda, and it's high on my list of things to get back working properly.
Well, so I'm really delighted because I really wanted to get in touch with you guys, because I was aware you'd started a sort of network of community energy, hadn't you? Or Tim had,
yeah.
and there was actually an initial meeting a while ago, a couple of years ago, would it be?
A couple of years ago. So as I say, it sort of died down a little bit last year, but it's back on our agenda as
that's great. Well, so
Mm-hmm.
basically, you know, we don't want to tread on your toes. You're very much a part of this picture then, because I would like to deliver a report at the end of this project that says Kevin and CDA Hearts are fully up for kind of bringing people together and actually making something happen. So perhaps we could have a chat, and then Lawrence.
We'll have a chat offline. Yeah.
Yeah. Lawrence, what kind of thing can you sort of elaborate on what you were saying about what you're interested in doing? Is Lawrence still on the? Yeah, there you are, Lawrence.
I'm sorry, I put a couple of things in the chat. Which one was it?
So what was it you were looking to kind of like what's your organization, and what was your idea, if you don't mind sort of expressing it now here?
It's electricity transmission that I work in, and I was really hoping we could get the same kind of presentation to raise some awareness of community energy in that organisation. And we've got volunteering targets there, hoping there might be some potential for people within that business to come and work with community energy people in some way. There's also potential for innovation projects. There's some quite interesting work taking place at the moment, some of it. Yeah, so I think we should get in contact.
Definitely. Are you from a DNO by any chance?
No.
Not a DNO.
Hey, are you in St Albans, Lawrence?
Very close. Yeah, okay. A few miles away.
Okay.
Cool. I love it. I really want to guess where you're from.
I don't. I'm going to like Harpenden. Like what's the other one around? Where's the
so you're not SSEN? You're not?
No, they're not a DNO. It's okay. We could take one, but yes, absolutely. I'm more than happy. We're always, I mean, with a juice hat on, always up for volunteers. The focus of this is obviously to kind of see what can be grown within St Albans, and kind of hopefully there'll be some community energy groups come out and be able to kind of support St Albans and all of the wonderful buildings and communities you have here. So but yes, as you've probably gathered, Lawrence, I'm more than happy to come and talk to anybody about community energy that will listen. So yes, and I'm sure Kirsty and Nicola both have the slides, so I'm sure they'll share both mine and Kirsty's.
That'd be amazing. I think we could almost have a copy and paste of the presentation from today, and it would get a lot of interest.
The other thing, and I hope it's okay to say this here, Kirsty and Nicola, is that and with Kevin in mind as well, Fiona up in North East Hearts, we are hoping to do a kind of day conference in September, October time, because there is this kind of vacuum. There aren't many community energy groups within Hertfordshire, so we have been looking at how can we kind of help promote it as well. So this has been a brilliant kind of like, for you, getting ahead of the curve in St Albans has been fabulous, and showcasing and taking that leadership to kind of say, yeah, we need more community energy in St Albans, and then you'll be able to kind of showcase it to the rest of them. So if anyone has missed this, obviously it'll be recorded, and if anybody kind of then still wants to pop along, we can make sure that those details are all shared, if that's all right. I hope I haven't hijacked
Yeah.
one too much.
Well, I'd love to be in on that conversation about the conference idea as well. I think
Ollie
there's
is aware.
Yeah, it would be really, because I think that would be great to kind of build on the work here in St Albans and, you know, get everybody along to that.
Yes.
That would be fantastic.
Martin,
Okay, so
I
Lawrence,
think-
we'll get in touch with you afterwards via Nicola and sort that out. And Kevin will have a meeting with you. Martin.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're all good.
Excellent. It just occurred to me that the other owner of large premises and large roof spaces is churches and other sort of other faiths. You know, there's all these church buildings and there's all these church halls.
Yep.
You know, with huge roofs that sort
Yes.
of untapped potential. And I was just wondering if there were discussions going on with them, like there is with the schools, again, trying to make use of those large roofs.
Yes, and by the wonderful nature of Church of England churches and that where their roofs have to be designed, they tend to have amazing south-facing, very long roofs. So yes, I mean, Kirsty or Nicola, please do feel free to jump in, because obviously I can't speak to St Albans churches per se, but St Albans Diocese, which our area does also fall into, they are very, very supportive of this. There are a huge number of churches within the St Albans Diocese who are going for eco-church status, and to get silver or certainly to get gold, solar panels is the way to do it. Bronze you can get by kind of involving your congregation and doing some good community outreach and community engagement. So St Albans Diocese is definitely very progressive and forward thinking on this, and there are more and more churches and cathedrals in the country now that are having solar put on, which answers all the questions of the churches that are grade 1 listed buildings and how you're going to get through that consent. Not churches, but church-owned, Church of England schools throw a slightly different challenge in that the policy, which may have changed since I spoke to them, but they haven't kind of said that they were working on it last time I spoke to them. Church of England schools are not allowed to have anything on their buildings that they don't own, which means if you want to do a community energy project and put solar on the roof has to be leased to the community energy organisation, which means that it doesn't work on Church of England schools. So they're very kind of like, okay, we realise this is a no-brainer for schools, but we can't currently do it. We need to change the policy. So it's a question of the more Church of England schools you have, that as a community energy group you talk to and you say this is an option, but these are the challenges, the more there's multiple voices going to organisations like the diocese, like the county council with state-run schools that says, we want to do this, what's holding it up, how can we remove these barriers? So yeah. Nicola or Kirsty, would you add anything to that?
I would just say that it also, so with the maintained schools, so for example, the Oxford Diocese, which it covers lots of areas that aren't Oxford, you might have a school which is a QA or a Q, whatever the other type is, which have varying degrees of lease arrangements and control. So the first port of call is find the roof and get to speak to the people in the building. And ideally, that's going to be the head teacher or the business manager or maybe the ops director for the church. I'm sure they have something as mundane as that, otherwise known as the Archangel Ops Director or something. I don't know, the Ops Archangel. But, you know, somebody who actually pays the bills, that's the person you want to speak to. And the head teacher, chair of governors sometimes can make things happen, but more often than not, they'll be really keen. And then the business manager's just sat there going, I haven't got time for this. I'm too busy finding shoes in the playground. So, you know, that you've got to find out who you're dealing with. But part of the help that Sarah can give, obviously with her experience, but also Community Energy Pathways, is asking the right questions of the right people saves so much time.
Yeah.
Because all of us have wasted so much time with enthusiastic but powerless people. And that's not to say they aren't worth talking to and lovely, but ultimately if they're not the decision maker, you're going to spend hours discussing what you could do and never getting anything done. So all of these things are possible. Sometimes, though, you have to have so much persistence and determination. Sometimes you might even have to put on an A board and patrol outside the school going, you should have solar, talk to us.
I
haven't done
think,
that yet.
yeah, and I think it's about, so we sometimes I talk about community energy and people literally look at me like I've got 3 heads. Like I had somebody say, who are you to even ask these questions? Because it's like, you haven't got the answers. People don't know what is possible, or they think it's too good to be true. Schools in particular have sometimes been burnt by the kind of rent-a-roof schemes, and particularly kind of some county councils can be a little bit kind of nervous. They're like, it can't be like, what is it going to cost us? We haven't got the resources. This is going to like, this is a risk. This is a loan. This is going to like sit on our books forever. So it's an education message. It's also a normalizing message. It's about saying that this has happened and saved lots of schools. It's about connecting those key stakeholders up with other schools, with other council officers, with other kind of groups that have done this and benefited from it. And we'll tell them warts and all. They'll be like, yeah, you know what? This was really challenging. This was really difficult. I wish I'd learned this. But you know what? We've saved X amount of money because our bills haven't gone up, or we've been able to bring in resources to teach and use the solar as a teaching tool to tick off 10 of our curriculum requirements. So there's a whole load of different things that if you don't have to be the salesperson on this, you have to be the connector to help people realize that this is happening anyway. And they are able to take advantage of it if they would like to. And if they don't, there will be there will be lots of other routes out there that you will be able to work with. And you are the key partner. You are trusted. Be that trusted kind of hyper local. You live in the community. Like, you're not going to run away.
Yeah, that's it. And it's that communication, having those communication skills, being able to address what the concerns are, because everybody has different concerns. So you've got to ascertain, you know, what are their concerns and how are we going to get around them. Kevin, were you going to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, in terms of what you're talking about, it's really ABCD, asset-based community development. It's knowing who's got the power, who's got the not the power, the willingness to actually get involved and make it happen. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? I think we've answered all the ones that were in the chat. Just oh, Martin, hello.
Oh, hello, Sarah. Just something else that came to mind when you were talking about the canal. Did you have to go through a lot of procedural sort of permission type stuff with the Environment Agency, with being able to use the waterways for that purpose?
That is the point we are just getting to. So we've had hydrogeological reports done and all sorts of things. So once the canal was kind of out of the way, if you like, as an actual source of the heat or the renewable energy, it then became the aquifer, which is very much obviously the EA's domain. So yes, we are at the point where we have a how long's a piece of string time frame and budget from them, of like, well, we won't tell you how many hours it'll take, but we'll tell you our hourly rate type thing. And yes, to understand whether this is something that they would permit and would allow. There are precedents of heat networks using aquifers. In fact, there is a very small one in Kings Langley where 4 barn conversions were built, and they have a ground source heat pump which accesses the aquifer. So we're talking about a lot more homes than 4, but there is precedent at least for them doing it. And because whilst you're taking it out, you are putting it all back in again, and there is no contamination of the water from the canal or water from the aquifer going into people's homes, it's all kept separate. We're hoping that it'll be really simple, but ask me that question in about a year. But yeah, permitting, if anybody knows about Swaffham and has come across Emma Fletcher, permitting and licenses is kind of like comes out of her mouth every second word, because it's so important and so crucial to the success of a project.
Yes, I thought so. Thank you for that.
Lovely. So Iris, you're typing. Okay, thank you very much. Nicola, back to you really, I think, to wrap up. Okay, great. Yeah. All right, well, I think I'll just keep this very, very brief. I'd like to say a big thank you to both of the speakers and for all of the participation. I think we've had a really good discussion.
So we'll be in touch. We should have your emails when you registered, and I think for today we'll close the webinar. But if you have any other burning questions, or you want to approach us or ask us questions, then do get in touch. All right, so
thank you very much.
night,
Thanks for the
everybody.
participation, and thanks, Sarah, for joining me.
Oh,
And
my
I'm on
pleasure.
LinkedIn as well, by the way, if you want to come and find me on LinkedIn. But yeah, get in touch and onwards and upwards.
Yeah, good luck. I look forward to watching closely from the other side of the canal. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Nicola.